Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. My name is Katrina and this is... So today is the 17th of December and I'm just going to do a mid-month wrap-up for all the books I've read since the 1st of December. And so let's just get started. I read Good Girl, Bad Blood by Holly Jackson. It's a young adult murder mystery, and it's the second in a series. The first one is a good girl's guide to murder. The first book was about Pippa. She wanted to reopen up a case that had been solved 5 years ago. It was her friend's brother had killed a girl of a prominent family in the town. She had a podcast and she solved the murder. Like, it was a cold case and stuff like that. She reopened it and she solved it. And so the second installment is her doing that again, basically, looking for someone who's missing, and then all these other little mysteries unravel as she goes along. So I really liked the first one. I gave it 4 stars, but then the second one I only gave it 2 stars. I was really meh on it. Next I read The Murder of Roger Akroyd by Agatha Christie. I don't know, I figured out what was going on early, and normally that doesn't bother me, but it annoyed me this time that I figured this out, and I figured it out very early. So I gave this one 2 stars as well. Next I read Every Last Fear by Alex Finlay. I gave it 2 stars. This book was super twisty and super complicated, and not in a good way in my opinion.
That's my opinion!
It's about a guy whose brother killed someone and went to jail. There was a documentary done about him. He goes off, goes to school, and then has to come back to the town where everybody hates him and everything like that, because his brother killed someone, because his parents and a younger sibling, I think, were killed in a weird gas fire, or a weird gas explosion in Mexico, I think. And it's told from multiple POVs. It's slow in some places and then too fast to kind of understand what's going on in other places, so it has like this stop and start. One of the 2 main criticisms that I did hear from from reviewers that I respect, was that this book was a little racist towards Mexicans and the depiction of Mexico. And one of the reviews that I read actually bore that out. The lady said that Mexico had never been a destination of choice for me. Too much corruption, crime, and cartel. It actually scares the shit out of me. If anything, this story just validated my fears. And a lot of people found that problematic. And there is a theory or a conspiracy that this guy is actually another writer that is kind of disgraced, called AJ Finn, I think. So everything around this book is just weird.
That's weird.
Who knows? Who knows? Now the next book, Night Books by J.A. White. I gave it 4 stars, but I'm thinking I'm gonna give it 5. It hooked me immediately. The little boy is a horror writer. He writes tons of stories, but he was going to throw out the books because he was tired of being different, because he loved horror and monsters and things like that, and he spent every bit of his free time writing scary stories, but he was just tired of being different, so he was going to go throw it away. And a smell, I think it was pumpkin pie or something, and I might be mixing it up because everybody smells and sees something different that draws them to the witch's door. And so I can't remember what his thing was, but he was drawn to this door, and then he got trapped in this witch's house. The witch was crazy. The narrator, I don't know if I would have read the witch as crazy as the narrator made her sound. The stories were really cool. It's one of those tropes that I found that I love. Books that have books within books or stories within books, and this one has multiple stories because he has to tell a story every night. And I loved the stories. I loved the adventure of him trying to get out, and it was just very quick and spare and perfect. Like, it was 288 pages. It was perfect storytelling. So because I loved the Night Books by J.A. White, I went ahead and looked for another book by him, or her, I'm not even sure. And I read the Shadow School book number 1, Archimancy, and it's about this girl who is sent to a boarding school, and there are ghosts there. She can see ghosts, and she's trying to figure out, you know, they don't bother her, so she's trying to figure out, should I help them, things like that. And then she realizes there's another boy who can, like, he comes into class all the time. He's really moody, always has his hoodie on, and so she notices him because he's the bad boy. But then she realizes that the reason why he is the way he is because he sees the ghosts as well, and he's always late because he's always trying to avoid them and get around them, because if you go through them you feel extreme chill. That the two of them become friends, and they start trying to free the ghosts. And then there's another girl who joins their group who is super smart and can help them in a different way, but she can't see the ghost. And then there's some other sinister things going on, and there's people, there are adults that initially you thought you could trust but that you probably shouldn't, things like that. So it was pretty good. It didn't feel as special to me as the Night Books. It felt like a normal middle grade book, and it did what it needed to do, and I gave it 3 stars, which is not bad at all. So then I went down a rabbit hole of J.D. Robb. I didn't realize that J.D. Robb was Nora Roberts until Mara at Books Like Whoa was talking about it, and I was like, oh. And so I wanted to try out the In Death series, and I like the series. It's one of those ones where I can turn off my brain, have it playing while doing something, fiddling around with, you know, different apps on my phone. I read 3. They all got 3 stars from me. So the first book was written in 1995. And a lot of times when you have these prolific writers that have been, like, you know, people who have been writing for a long time, the stuff can seem dated. But weirdly enough, because this book the story is set in 2058, and it's a detective story, it's a detective mystery, and the detective is a hardened detective. She doesn't have an alcohol problem or anything like that. She has a past of abuse, and she has a really hard shell around herself, but she is a relentless fighter for other victims and getting justice for them. And then there's this really rich guy, Rourke, who falls in love with her, and he kind of straddles the line. He's like a billionaire, and he straddles the line between lawful and unlawful, so he helps her out and they fall in love. And it feels really cool because there's AI and there's communicators and there's like iPads and things like that, and it's so cool because it doesn't feel like it was a book written in 1995, except for how she writes Black people. It is so cringe. The Black people are only, except for I think one police officer, the rest are criminals. And she does this thing that I think writers should never do, which is write in AAVE, but she doesn't know AAVE. It was just so uncomfortable to listen to. And there's conversations online about people using black scents and, you know, totally being called out because they don't know how to use the words properly. There was a study done where, first of all, so Ebonics got switched to AAVE, African American Vernacular English, and it's a recognized dialect of English. Obviously, anything regarding Black people is going to be looked down upon, but it actually is. It's studied. It has roots in West African ways of speaking, and it is almost innate in Black people. And so we can pick up on people. Like there's been a lot of bots and things like that who try to sow discord on Twitter and things like that when it came to the election and things like that. And you could almost always figure out who was a bot because they would try to speak with or write with the Black slant, and or there are young people who try to talk in that way. And I'll look for some of the examples, and it's so not how Black people talk. There was a study done where there was kids in a classroom and they showed them a picture of Cookie Monster. Cookie Monster was sick and Elmo was there with a plate of cookies. And so they asked all the kids, what's happening in this picture? What's Elmo doing in this picture? And the white kids said, all the kids said, Elmo's eating the cookies. And then they asked them again, what is Cookie Monster doing? Something like that. What is Cookie Monster doing? And the white kids say, Cookie Monster is sick. He's laying there. But the Black kids said that Cookie Monster be eating cookies. And that's called a habitual be. No, we have a habitual tense that's not in standard English, where it's saying that that's what that person is known for. She made that mistake of trying to write a Black character without knowing how to write it. And it was stereotypical, it was uncomfortable, and it showed up again in book 2. It did in book 3. And so I'm really hoping as the series goes along that completely gets, either don't write a Black character or get a sensitivity, reader or whatever they call them, beta readers, whatever, to tell you that, so, and again, I realized that in 1995, that might have been allowed. I don't ever like the idea that, back in the day, people are allowed to be racist. People knew that slavery was bad from the beginning. That's why we had abolitionists fighting from the very beginning. Black people, knew that slavery was bad. They were being treated poorly. So that whole idea that times were different is hogwash to me. But she was allowed to get away with it. And so I'm hoping that as time goes on, because I think there's like 50 books of this series, I hope that completely gets out. So I finally read Becky Chambers. This was definitely because of Alicia Reads and Rambles. I enjoyed it very much. There's multiple different kinds of people who accept themselves. There's different kinds of love that's accepted, and just some of it is remarked upon, and mostly it's against humans. Like some of the other characters don't understand humans and their weirdness around certain things, and they're just really lovable characters, and the women are badass, and like not in a forced in your face way. You just realize that there's just women everywhere, politicians, doctors, mechanics, clerks, everything, everywhere. I really liked Dr. Chef. He was a doctor and a cook, and he was like this big gray 6 or 8 arm thing. I really loved it. It was a long book, and so I was taking time off from it, and this is also the period when I started to not rate it. So I think I would rate this book a 4-star and maybe a 5-star, because I think I'd want to read this again. It's a comfort sci-fi book, and I never thought I would say that about a sci-fi. It's cozy. I fell in love with, it's weird because it's weird to think you can have a crush on a character. And I have a crush on the captain of the Folly in Ben Aronovich's Rivers of London series. And I love the captain of this story as well. And it wasn't because of a voice or anything put on. It's just his character is so wonderful. Ashby, I'm just like, oh, I love his character. there is no plot really. There's a lot of events that just happen because it really is character driven. And it's like it gives you a window into a world that we could have if we just accepted people as they were. If we just, and there's still things that people have to deal with. Like there's a little character. I couldn't understand. I kept seeing just like a tiny person. Because there's people that I've seen who are fully grown but look like 2-year-olds. So that's different than dwarfism. So I didn't know if I missed a description or something with this character Jenks, who is small, and he really gets annoyed when people suggest that he do something about it, because you can do alterations to your genes and stuff like that. And he was in love with the ship's AI, and so like that was interesting and poignant. Becky Chambers' writing for a sci-fi was beautiful. The prose was really beautiful, and it's a book you had to pay attention to. Like it wasn't a book that you zone out on. So 500 pages of such difference, and was taxing on me. So that's why I did not rush into the next book, but I'm going to read the next book. So the next book that I read was I'm Dreaming of Undead Christmas by Molly Harper, narrated by Amanda Ronconi. You guys know that I love this series. This was a novella, and it was just a romance, vampires. The next one I read was The Mystery of Black Hollow Lane. This is another middle grade where this girl whose mother is very busy. She's a parenting expert, but she's too busy to parent her daughter. Her father disappeared years ago, so she's really lonely. And she gets shuffled around these different boarding schools, and she gets shuffled to this one called Wellsworth in England. There's some shady stuff going on there. There's strange symbols and things like that, secret societies. It just didn't have enough charm. Like you read magical middle grade for charm and magic, and this was more insular, and not even insular in a way that I think is really helpful for kids, because I'm very, very I guess attuned to middle grade kids, because I just remember everything changed for me when I was 12. It didn't have enough mystery, it didn't have enough magic and charm, and it didn't have enough middle grade like angst or understanding or anything like that. So it was okay, and I did not rate it, but it's probably a 3. The next book I read was A Cup of Holiday Fear by Ellie Alexander. This got a 3-star because it's a cozy mystery and it did what it was supposed to do. It's actually book 10 in a Big Bake Shop mystery series, but cozy mysteries are really great for allowing you to just come into it at any point. And so that made it really awesome that I was able to just come into this book and read about this town. It's really, this book was heavy on describing the food and the baking process and the ingredients, and it made me want to open up. Like I think I've told you this before, that when I was in college, every class that I enjoyed, I would change my major and think I was going to do that thing. And I do the same thing when reading these books and stuff like that. Or I'm like, oh my God, I want to open up a shop that does everything handmade and seasonal. And then the Christmas atmosphere was wonderful. And I don't even remember the murder. The people weren't quirky. And then there's, multiple different people who, red herrings and things like that. So all that stuff was serviceable. But the focus on the food and how it was made, and the Christmas surroundings, and the garland and the holly, and you could almost like just smell, because she kept describing this coffee mix where it had like the Christmas spices in the coffee. I'm like, where can I get this coffee? That was a lovely, cozy, wrapped up in a cozy Christmassy blanket book. And the last book I completed was The Conductors by Nicole Glover. It goes back and forth in time, but not too far. So it's like right before slavery ends, so slave, at the tail end of like the Civil War, right after that, and then a little bit further down from there. And we meet this magic, like this murder solving magical couple who have a marriage of convenience until they don't. And there's all these different machinations. There's different kinds of magic. White people use sorcery, black people use magic, which is celestial, and sorcerers use, I forgot where their magic come from, but they actually use wands, and wands are outlawed for black people. Black slaves used to have these things on their necks to keep their magic bound, and so that is referred to a lot when they're free. They still have, the magical people still have the marks around their neck from when they were magical. So this was a normal, like, twisty turny mystery. What made this special though was the magic heightens it. We normally see like voodoo when it comes to black people and magic, or root magic, but using celestial magic, like she would literally call down Capricorn and Taurus and stuff like that, and it would like light up and do certain things. So that was interesting, and I will read the next book. Let's let this be the end of the video emoji. Be easy on yourself, and I will see you in the next video.